When people say like favorite moment in a book, usually they talk about very interesting, very happy moments in the book. But for a dystopian book like this, it's not even like Hunger Games when you have a lot of action scenes and then you talk about like favorite moment, right? But this
The
one,
difference
I
is
can't.
successful rebellion.
Successful rebellion.
Yeah, because as we
Oh,
both know, the ending of 1984, it's not the most successful rebellion.
oh,
Think,
neither.
think deeper. If I don't have the words and I have the art, I still can't describe the picture.
Alright, hello and welcome everyone to Book Lovers United podcast, The Sun and Stars, a podcast where we discuss with our guests to get the insights and get to understand their perspective toward a particular book. My name is Khang and I'm the host for this first episode. Joining me today is Reina and Kelly, my two best friends, and we are going to discuss George Orwell's Animal Farm and 1984, two of the most timeless books in my opinion. Well, hi Reina. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this podcast, and when you told me I'd be on the first episode, it made it even more special.
Wow, don't mention that. Well, before going to have discussion, I would like to ask you what are your first impressions on the two books that we are going to discuss today?
Well, I'm sure as all of us know, Animal Farm and 1984 are on everyone's must-read list. Yeah, so I wanted to be cultured, so I bought the book. And initially, when I started it, I really was not into it. I just couldn't get past the first few pages. I think it's because when we want fiction, we want something to relate to humans, right? But Animal Farm, they're about animals. So
It sounds like a children's book to me.
doesn't it? Yeah, it seemed a bit demure is the best word I can use, and it just wasn't interesting to me. But after you told me to read it and I was invited, I'm really glad I did because the hidden messages in it and the writing is just chef's kiss.
All right. What about 1984? Yeah, I think like that's a very complex and thicker book to read. What are your thoughts on that?
It's in one word, very depressing. I would say.
All right, I agree.
It's setting London, right?
Yep.
London's already a pretty grey place on its own, but somehow George made it an even sadder setting. So, I would say
Alright.
Animal Farm's my favorite.
Yeah. All right, I see. Well, let's talk about Animal Farm first, right? Can you give the audience the brief summary of what's the book about for anyone who hasn't read that yet?
Brief summary. Well, it's written by George Orwell in 1944, and it's a satire story about a group of animals getting together to take over their humans' farm. And it starts with just one pig called Old Major, gathering them together and starting something they called animalism. Yeah, which is his guiding principles.
All right, I see. Well, the book is I would say like I enjoy the first half of the book, while towards the very end of the book, I feel more and more depressed. And one of my favorite quotes in the book, I would say that both Animal Farm and 1984, they have a lot of quotes that you feel related to that. So one of mine is, they had come to a time when no one dared to speak his mind, when fierce crawling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades torn to pieces after confessing to shocking crimes. Well, this happened, just to put a little bit of context, towards the second half of the book, when Napoleon, he first appeared in the book as like a pig with the very belief that they take over the control of the humans, which is very cruel, to build up a very wonderful world of animals. But then the more we read the towards the ending of the book, we would see that Napoleon turned out to be kind of tyrant. And at the end of the book, he just looks like not just Napoleon, but all the pigs look more like human. They walk on two legs and they start eating and then having a lot of business with the humans. Well, I would like to ask you, because the book is so interesting, intriguing, and have a lot of layers. So what is your favorite quote in the book? And after you've done the reading, right, we have the first impression, but after you finish reading, what are your thoughts on the book?
All right, so for my favorite quote, I'm caught between two actually. One of it is 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, which is the sheep's mantra that they keep repeating. But I think that in the end, I decided my favorite is the one on the back, which is all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others.
Oh, yeah, the 7 commandments, man. I like that part.
How can they be more equal if equal itself states that two things must be in balance? And I think that it's a hint to the end of the book. and also the main theme of the book. So
Oh,
yeah,
I see, I see.
that quote encapsulates the book as a whole.
Well,
Yeah.
I think because of the seven commandments and a lot of conflicts that happen in the book, that George Orwell's books are banned in Vietnam, my home country, people. Yeah, like I remember growing up, and there was a time that I wanted to question a lot of questions around me, like wanted to get to know about it. And my uncle suggested reading George Orwell's because he said that, yeah, those books are going to inspire you a lot. And then I tried to go to the bookstore, but I could not find the book. Later on, I found out, oh, they were banned in all the country. There was a time that it was published in the Vietnamese version, but very soon it was banned everywhere. And I think like part of that reason of that is because of the message and because of the books itself, right? So I would ask you some question to get into the story of the book, right? So what do you think about the dystopian world in Animal Farm, actually? Like, yeah, regarding the earlier question of your thoughts on the book after reading. So it depicts a dystopian world in like animalism, but what do you think about that world? Is that somewhat related to today's world?
You see, use the word dystopian, right? I don't believe that it is dystopian
Mm-hmm.
at all because, of course, it is animals, and you think this is fiction, this is animals. How is this related to me? It seems like such a strange world. But then you think of the main themes of the book, and you think of how smart these animals are, and you realize that this is us. This is
Mm.
humans. The animals are us. This is humans, and at their very core, we are greedy. We need control. Yeah,
Mm.
so I don't think it's dystopian
You're
at
talking
all.
about a metaphor and a symbol of the animals, right? How do you describe like in what way that they represent humans?
I think that they represent humans in one, their ability to work together, because
Mm-hmm.
these animals are very smart, right? Especially the pigs.
Mm-hmm.
They throughout the story they start to build their society up to protect themselves, I would say. And I think that's what humans do themselves. The core of
Mm.
all this war is wanting control. Why you want control? Because you want your people to be safe.
I see, I
Yeah.
see. Well, in fact, I would say like, I think George Orwell intended to depict and actually like use the animals right here to talk about to symbolize the Russian Revolution, while John plays as like the Tsar, it's like the very old king in the imperialism of Russia, and old major he symbolized, I would say, Lenin, the one who had the idea to help the country to overcome what is that totalitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
And well, let's talk about the favorite or least favorite moment in the book first before we go into the characters, because I think it's very important to talk about, when people say like favorite moment in a book, usually they talk about very interesting, very happy moments in the book. But for a dystopian book like this, it's not even like Hunger Games when you have a lot of action scenes and then you talk about like favorite moment, right? But this one, I can't find any favorite moment actually. What about you, Reina?
Yeah, I think you have to approach this book really differently,
Mm-hmm.
in a sort of morbid way, because there is no real happy moment in this book unless you want to count every time the animals achieve something in their
Oh,
daily
like
life, but
yeah.
you can't really count that. I would say my favorite is when there's a moment where all the animals are singing together and Squealer approaches them with two dogs and makes the decree that from now on, the Beast of England song is banned. It's abolished. You
Mm,
can never sing it. And this was the one song that they used to unite in the beginning. And I
mm.
feel like it was almost like a book slam or door slam moment in the book.
Oh.
It's this from this moment you see the total power that Napoleon had over them.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, the first half of the book is very hopeful. It's like just like, yeah, animals trying to rebel and take over control and try to get freedom. Like you said, like the
Yeah.
song, I really much enjoy the first half of the book. Like feel like you're reading a children's book actually. But yeah, towards the end, it's kind of creepy a bit.
Yeah.
There's like also an animated adaptation of this one. Have you watched that before?
I have not.
Oh.
I have this thing where if I'm going to read the book, I won't watch any movies.
Oh,
You know,
you
it just
should, you
destroys it. It
should.
just destroys it.
Come on.
Only one medium at a time.
All right.
Yeah.
But for the animated version, I would say like I don't know is that because of the producers, but I feel like that is intended for children. It's basically the plot is kind of similar, but the ending they changed that to be a bit happy ending.
Oh no, what was the
Yeah,
ending?
so okay, for spoiler alert, everyone. So at the end, right, as I told you that it seems for all the animals that this is kind of a vicious cycle when Napoleon becomes, like human. Yeah, so totalitarian. I cannot pronounce this word. Totalitarianism. All right. So it's just like same hopeless cycle. But in the animated version on YouTube, I think it's still available there. The pig was actually kicked out of the farm. Like all of the animals decided to rebel against Napoleon. I find that's very interesting and it's very hopeful. But when you think about that one way, maybe one of the animals, I don't know, maybe let that be the duck, the chicken, the horse. Maybe one of them would become the next type of pig. So I would say the animated version is quite fun to watch. So please check it out, everyone.
It's hopeful.
Yeah, it's hopeful. It's so different from this
and
one.
unrealistic.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know. I don't think it's unrealistic, but again, it's more about the symbol that we're talking about, is it? So do you feel that the world depicted in animal form is happening nowadays? Yeah, you keep ignoring this question from the beginning. I want to get into that, right?
I want to avoid any controversial topics, really.
I know, but we can jump between the lines.
Yes, I would say in some countries right now, people are being deceived by their government. In the same way that Napoleon, he phrases a lot of his demands as logic. It's for the people. But in the end, it's not for the people. It's just power. And yes, it is happening in some countries.
All right.
These days, I will not say which country.
All right. Yeah. Of course. I understand that. Well, so let's talk about symbol, right? I think symbol plays a really important in terms of the literary devices here, as I mentioned earlier, that people believe, and I think like they have the right that George Orwell actually intended to use the pigs and animals to symbolize the Russian Revolution, right? One of the very favorite moment in the book to me is not favorite moment, sorry. The symbol in the book.
Okay.
It's the windmill.
Oh, I knew you were going to bring that up.
All right. So, Reina, okay, before I tell you, I share my thoughts with you, what does the windmill symbolize to you? Like, what thing in the real life, or what does that symbolize, in your opinion?
It symbolizes development.
Development.
Yeah, it's a sign that the animals without their human can survive on their own. They don't need the humans. Yeah, that's what it was initially with Snowball's idea. But when it came to Napoleon, he started enlisting the humans' help with it, which kind of went against its very purpose in the start, I would say.
Well, like, okay, they change the rules constantly in the book, so we cannot say for sure. Yeah, development. Yeah, in my opinion, it doesn't just symbolize development. It also symbolizes the victory and the union of the animals. Yeah, they united and they fought against John, and then they built the windmill. So it basically symbolizes the whole animalism. And again, in some countries, if you go there, you will see that they have more welcome entrances than the real development in that countries, and it's not gonna end well, I would say. But of course, yeah, in this book we're gonna
Are you saying that in these countries they welcome you and they show you these developments, but in reality doesn't fit?
Sure, yeah, it just like happens with Napoleon, isn't it? Like exploitation, like he uses the people to build up the windmill, but then he at the same time simultaneously he just like takes advantages of that, right? He takes out the eggs of the chickens, and then he lives in the house while all the animals have to work like 60 hours a week, guys. I'm only allowed to work 20 hours a week in my university, but then they have to work 60 hours a week. Can't believe it. Right. So, okay, let's talk about the most intriguing symbol. Yeah, I just share with you my favorite one. So what about you, Reina?
Okay, I think my favorite symbol is not an object, it's Snowball.
Snowball.
Yeah, which Snowball is such a cute name.
Okay.
It's for such a nice character. And Snowball, at the start, he's their leader, right? But then Napoleon, over time, shoos him out, right? Chases him out, literally. And it's throughout the book, it's doubtful whether he actually came back. Because do you remember they started blaming him? Like every time the windmill was broken down, they would say, oh, Snowball came back. Snowball destroyed this, you know? And I think that Snowball became a symbol of rebellion against the greater good, you know? The greater good being animalism.
I see,
know?
I see.
Napoleon used Snowball to corral fear and compliance within the animals to show, you know, if this big bad Snowball, you know, says he was going to help us, but he's destroying us now, so you should back me, you know, you should choose me as your president, you know, and I will
Alright.
take care of you. Yeah, so Snowball is a big symbol.
Yeah. Do you know? Yeah, because I think like you did question me before that what happened to Snowball.
Yeah, what happened to Snowball? Come on.
Really?
They never said what
Yeah, they
happened
never
to
said that,
him.
but can you guess? The moment that Napoleon decided to actually like to chase Snowball, you have no idea what happened to Snowball, huh?
Do we want the realistic answer or the
Yeah,
children
give me
cartoon
some of your
answer?
thoughts then.
Realistic is that he ran away and got eaten
All
by
right.
another farm. The children version is he ran away and found a better place, and
Oh.
he's building his plan to come back and rescue his people.
All right. Yeah, that's a bit dreamy, people. But I would say, well, I believe so, and I think like the producer of the animated version believes so that he was actually killed.
Really?
Yep. In the animated version, he was killed by the dogs that Napoleon.
Oh, that's even darker than the book.
Yeah, darker than the book. But they didn't show that. Just like the dog chased him
just
and
alluded to him being murdered brutally.
But I think he was murdered in the book. But yeah, of course, they didn't mention that. And like you said, he symbolizes the rebellion. But I think more than that, I would say he just like someone that Napoleon would blame on when anything happened.
Yeah, there's a word for that. Is it scapegoat? True,
true.
scapegoat. Yeah,
Yeah.
he became a scapegoat for Napoleon.
Yeah, like if
definitely.
if you wins or something, or you gain something, then it's
Yeah.
Napoleon. But if you fails that, if something that happens like not as planned, then it's Snowball.
Snowball's
Yeah.
fault. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it happens like in the book. So, okay, before we end the question, before we move on to the next book, I would like to ask you one last question, which is why, actually there are two. So
Okay.
why did George Orwell want to depict the animals like this? And, okay, just start with that question first.
What do you mean like this?
Like the way that, like I would like, because you mentioned there are so many hidden messages, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that the hidden messages are because of the way that the animals are depicted. So I
Yeah.
would love to ask you, like, why do you think that he decided to hide the messages using the animals?
I think because of how realistic this whole setting is.
Mm.
The animals are depicted, besides the pigs, right? The rest are depicted as stupid. You know,
Oh.
they because throughout the book, just now you asked what my least favorite moment was, and it was when Squealer was trying to convince the animals that they had dreamed up the other commandments. They started changing the commandments, and then every time the animals came and said, "Hey, that's against the commandment," he was like, "But do you remember us actually saying that?" So that was my least favorite moment, and I think that it showed the capacity of tricking humans.
All right.
The animal stupidity is used, why he depicts the animals as stupid is to kind of depict how easily humans are swayed to, or humans are controlled. Yeah.
Mm.
We are not stupid, but filled with the right messages and persuaded a certain way, we can be made to do anything, basically.
I see. Yeah, I would also love to ask like what's the character Napoleon symbolizes, but I think okay, yeah, you don't want to go too far into that, then it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he symbolizes a bad person.
Yeah, really, really bad
Yeah.
person. Start with an S, I believe, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Never mind. Okay, last question,
Okay.
Reina. So, I would ask you if you have to compare between 1984 and Animal Farm, what would be some differences and similarities? And is there anything that you find interesting between the two books?
All right.
The
so
connection, yeah.
The connection is oppression.
All right,
It's
oppression.
the word that you said just now, totalitarianism.
Mhm.
I can't really pronounce it either.
All right, fine.
But in both stories, the government or the central party of power
Mhm.
wants to control everyone below them. You know, so I feel like totalitarianism is the similarity. The difference is successful rebellion.
Successful rebellion.
Yeah. Because as we
Oh.
both know, the ending of 1984, it's not the most successful rebellion.
Oh, neither does the Animal Farm, right? The only successful rebellion is like the rebellion at the first chapter. No, the second chapter actually.
Depends on whose perspective you're looking at it from. If you're
Hmm.
looking at it from the pig's perspective, then they have rebelled against their oppressor. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think both books, or specifically Animal Farm, tells the story of a circle of oppression and rebellion. No
Mm.
matter what is, for example, oppression is the humans, the elite humans, right? The ones hurting the animals. Rebellion is the pigs. But you see, at the end of it, the pigs are the ones oppressing the other animals. So it's a
Mm.
cycle that never
Yeah,
ends.
yeah, the vicious
Oppression and
cycle.
rebellion.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
so I think that's their difference is the successful rebellion. Yeah.
Okay, one of the differences that I find it's for Animal Farm, it's you feel that it's kind of funny, right? It's you feel like yeah, the animals, you feel some connection with the animals.
Oh, yes.
You feel the metaphors, but at the end of the day, you don't really feel connected towards your life, right? It's just like yeah, it's some children book, and then they depict it like in the real world, but then you don't feel the connection. That's wrong. But when you read 1984, because of the world that George Orwell he built up in that world so detailed, especially when it comes to the appendix, when he explained the newspeak, the language that people in Oceania uses, you feel like well, this is happening. This is truly happening, and you can feel like you are actually Winston throughout the book. Like
Yeah.
you feel so helpless and so hopeless. You can't find the words to express your ideas. So that's
Yes.
1984 is pretty much difficult for me to read, but I still love both of them. And the similarity, like you said, against totalitarianism, especially the 1984. But for Animal Farm, I would say it's more anti-communism. All right. So, okay. Thank you very much, Reina.
All right,
And
thank you for having me.
yeah. Okay. So before we discuss 1984, we would love to have a short break. Thank you, everyone, and we would be back with our second guest, Kelly. All right, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, The Sun and the Stars, and please welcome our second guest for today, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Thank you very much for being here with me.
Hello, Khang. Yeah, I'm very excited because this is my first time doing this podcast, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well. Okay. I won't, going around the bush anymore, right? Let's talk about your feeling after reading. Okay, if you have to pick one word to describe 1984, okay, what would that word be?
I would say contradicting
Okay.
or even tragic, but I'll stick with contradicting.
Okay, how so?
Yeah, because there's many themes in the book, and it's all. I think that it's very debatable. Like, yeah, and like whether having a vocabulary can affect your thinking, or whether something is right or wrong. The ethics part, and also the political ideologies, they are very contradicting, I would say.
All right. Well, just earlier I asked Reina to tell me like the differences and the similarities between 1984 and Animal Farms. Can you share with me like your thoughts on this question? Do you find any similarities and any differences between the two books?
All right. The short answer to this one is the differences is one is focused on animals and one is on.
Oh, very helpful, I would say.
But the main I think that the similarity is it's all it revolves around political ideologies like power, totalitarianism. Yeah.
All right. You're the only one who could pronounce that word very successfully. So which one do you prefer, by the way?
I would say 1984 since it's my first book.
Mm.
Like after it's suggested for me to read it, like same like Reina, it's a hard start, but I did not regret finishing the book.
Yeah. Like when you start reading that, you feel like you want to read more, and it keeps getting better throughout the book. I mean, like the story, like it's like you get into the book. I'm not saying like the characters and the whole situation is getting better, right? It's getting worse in the book, but you feel more interested in the book.
Yeah, plus there's a plot twist right at the back.
Plot twist. I wonder what it is. Oh yeah. Actually, I know what it is. I'm just joking. Anyway, well, can you give the audience a short summary of the book again? Like for someone who has not read the book yet, please consider read that.
Yeah, of course. So the book is written by George Orwell in 1949. It's written some years later after The Animal Farm. And it's about totalitarian government attempting to exercise their power to control people's thoughts, actions, everything. And there's no privacy. Like even if we were to be in 1984 right now, everything we say is recorded. There's no privacy. And so the ideology was actually based on the Soviet Union and the Nazi Germany back then.
Oh.
Yeah, some history, rich histories.
I prefer this guest over the earlier guest, She dares to speak some of the very blacklist word. But yeah,
Okay.
that's one my favorite part about this podcast.
All right. And so the main character is Winston Smith, not Winston Churchill, but yeah. So
Okay.
he's a government employee and who actually have free thoughts. He even quote unquote rebelled to own his own diary, to, like write down his own thoughts. So he rebelled against the Big Brother. So allegedly the leader of the dominant government. Yeah, and along with some plot twists, like I said.
All right. I see.
Interesting.
So, can you reveal the ending a bit? Does that end in a very happy moment, or hopeful, or even more hopeless than Animal Farm?
I would say more hopeless,
More hopeless.
depressing,
Okay.
sad,
All right.
tragic.
Okay. All right. So, well, just earlier you mentioned Big Brother, and as far as I know, that actually George Orwell, he actually created a lot of words that people
Yes.
use today in the dictionary. Big Brother, and then what's the word?
Orwellian,
Yeah, Orwellian.
double thing.
Yeah, double thing. Oh, that's one of my questions as well, man. But okay, let's talk about the favorite quote in the book. Actually, for 1984, like I mentioned in the with Reina earlier, for 1984, you can actually code any page and you can still find the application of that code in this real life today. For example, one of my favorite lines is, "Who controls the past?" ran the party slogan. "Controls the future." And "who controls the present?" controls the past. Another line goes, "Suddenly there sprang into his mind, ready-made as it were, the image of a certain comrade Ogilvy. Okay, I'm sorry. This word's difficult for me to pronounce, but Ogilvy, who had recently died in battle in heroic circumstances. It was true that there was no such person as Comrade Ogilvy, but a few lines of print and a couple of faked photographs would soon bring him into existence."
Wow.
I mean, like, the two lines are so interesting. It's like, okay, political correctness of the history. Like some countries, they decide to rewrite history to fit into their situation. Like now, like it's more biased towards the one who wins the battle, and then they have the power to rewrite history. They ban all the books talking about the very sad past, very dark moments of their parties. So, what about you? I assume that you have some favorite quotes in the book as well.
Yeah, like I feel that the quotes that you said, it really describes how power or control can affect humans, And like I believe that there's a lot of quotes in the book, but like to me, most of them are quite depressing. Like it's on the negative side, but you can always think positively on in terms of the quote. Yeah. So one of my favorite quote is, "In this game that we are playing, we can't win. Some kinds of failure are better than other kinds. That's all. It's a conversation between Winston and Julia. Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned Julia. That's a very interesting character in the book. Like besides Winston, Julia seems like a person who kind of rebel against government, but in her case, I would say it's more interesting. It's much more interesting. But that's one of my questions to ask you later on as well. Anyway,
Right.
again, tell me your favorite moment or least favorite moment in the book.
So my favorite moment would be to follow up on the quote just now, it can be applied in real life. Like we usually regret in things that we have not accomplished.
All right.
So it's better to have some kinds of failure than not to do anything at all. So my favorite moment would be that the encounters of Winston. Like he met people, different people, and they even like tell their secrets to the Mr. Who do you call the guy?
O'Brien?
No, there's another guy.
Or you mean like the guy who owns the house that they secretly go to?
Yeah, that guy.
All right, I forgot his name. I'm so sorry. Okay, I love the book, but some character. Okay, they play a really important part of the book, but and I just like somehow forget it.
Yeah, like they just share their secrets and believe him, and even O'Brien. They like Winston. I have a thought that Winston might be rainbow.
Rainbow. Well, I don't think so because well, when you live in a society that bad, and when you develop some inner thoughts about the world, and I don't know is there any psychology term for this one, but maybe he just desperately looks for someone who can understand him, who can be empathetic towards what he thinks. So
and then that can be seen through anybody.
Yeah.
Maybe he even loves a tree.
oh yeah, true. Well, I would say like so you just mentioned like your favorite moments is when he tells the secret to that person, even though he does not know much about that person, right?
Yeah, like his different encounters with different people.
I see. Well, isn't that hopeful in the book? Does that give you any hope at all? Because we all know that the ending of the book is not is very very sad. But along the line, do you even like have hope? Just like Winston, like he found out that spoiler alert, that O'Brien might be his ally, might be someone in the party. Then when O'Brien said, "Yeah, I have a secret book. This is gonna tell you everything about the party, the inner side of the party, and I'm on your side." But at the end of the day, it's not like that. It's so different, and it's more like a setup. So
Yes, agree.
while reading those chapters, do you actually feel hopeful like Winston does?
While I was reading a book, there was a love-hate relationship with the book, and like I usually don't feel hope, but that the hope that really arises is the part where I think that it's really hard to brainwash somebody. Like it really takes the government to go extremely harsh or violent. The difficulties of like brainwashing you to believe in something. That part.
Whoa, isn't that easy in the book? I would say. Come on, you have a whole department, and the job of the department is to erase the news, it's to change the news constantly every single day. Like this today, you have a war with this country, and then tomorrow you guys become friends, and then the day after that you become like an allies again. So I would disagree with this because I feel like the big brother in the book they have power. They are like the tyrant already, and it depicts in the book that actually information is changeable. You can change that very very easily, and people in that society, they are under the oppression of political correctness, and that affects their behavior. As you would say, like even though something like falling in love is a political act, having sex is a political act, and people don't even have the pleasure to do that as well.
Yeah, like it takes 300 pages for him to politically correct Winston.
True. But well, I mean, like that happens because along the way he has Julia. Imagine that he's just isolated from the rest, and he's exposed to the whole society right there. So I don't think like if in the case that I think like love plays a really important part in this situation.
Attachments.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, like love makes him realize that all right, there's some more thing that I could actually care about.
Yes.
It's more about the emotion that helps him to get through the whole thing going on the brainwashness.
Yes, speaking of love, spoiler alert. I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised that Winston betrayed Julia at the end
Wow, I don't know.
because of his phobia, you know.
Okay, imagine. I'm sorry, this is not stereotype, but imagine that you you have a big bag of cockroaches and you give that to the girls. I think like the first thing that the girls would say, oh, give that to my boyfriend. Because come on, when you are faced with someone that you are feared of, I think that's the like the last straw. Winston actually he didn't really want to listen to O'Brien at first, even though like they tortured him physically, they starved him into like very thin, but then they decided, okay, no, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna feed him. We're gonna make him healthier, and then the last thing would be encounter that person to the fear, to the thing that they're feared of.
Room 101.
Yeah, and I don't think if you could ever survive that. I think, well, I don't know. What do you think? Like, if he didn't betray Julia in room 101, then what is gonna be the next torture method that the Big Brother would use?
I believe that if he survives room 101, there's nothing else that can brainwash him.
So you mean like in that case, the Big Brother might execute him?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the execution, it's no use because you didn't achieve your goal, and the people would like look up towards him, and people will start rebelling, And this also reminds me of like Winston had another girl, right?
Oh yeah.
Before that. So I was wondering if that girl actually did have affair with some other guys, or
Oh, I don't
and
think
was also
so.
brainwashed.
Because his old wife, right? She described that the person who, because when you live in this ocean, you would see like people have sex just to reproduce, and it's more like a task for people to do, not something that we enjoy or just a pleasure. And it exactly happens to Winston's old wife. Yeah, I mean like wife, not really old. You are assigned to a wife.
Previous wife.
Yeah, then you don't love her. You just like want to produce a child. That's all. So I don't really think that she has an affair. Just Winston.
Yeah, like prior to that brainwash.
Well,
like,
I do.
maybe she's
Okay.
been to this whole
Yeah, yeah.
Winston journey.
You got a point.
Yeah.
But talking about execution, I think it happens in the book that a lot of people in Oceania they are erased out of the history, out of like there's no records of them. That's what we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and speaking of this psychology part of things, this reminds me of an experiment with Albert. Do you know the experiment where they brainwash this baby with which initially the baby is not scared of rats, but then when the baby touched the rat, they boom, they rang a thing which scared the baby.
Oh.
So the baby started to have this phobia with rats, and this even generalized into being scared of furry animals, furry things.
All right. Wow. That's a very like a butterfly effect, huh?
Yeah, it's called the Albert experiment.
Okay, that's a very new term for me, but yeah, it's interesting. I'll definitely look it up.
Yeah.
So let's come to our in-depth thoughts and in-depth questions, right? So I want to ask you this very, of course, controversial book, but it's very applicable in today's world. So to what extent does the book become relevant to today's world, in your opinion?
So I think it's relevant in terms of the surveillance, mass surveillance. It's not directly.
Oh, it's directly. Come on, look at the camera. It's recording. What are we doing right
Well,
now?
it's not from the government.
All right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, like I think the surveillance we have right now is indirectly charging towards us, like slowly rising. Like the social media could be one of the surveillance.
Everything is recorded and everyone knows what you're doing like that, huh?
Yeah, and speaking about, let's speak about cancel culture. Even it's a surveillance thing where people might cancel each other when you say something wrong, but it's not really justified sometimes.
I see, I see. Yeah, let's just look at one of my favorite actors, Johnny Depp, and
Yeah.
what he has to suffer right now. Yeah, that's very sad actually.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole cancel thing, and when you I mean, like, yeah, everyone just observes you, but when you have an opinion against like the crowds, then you are labeled as like the people who have no culture, who have no belief, who have no, I don't know, like you're like the man belongs to nowhere. And
Yeah.
yeah, people start accusing you, start blaming everything on you.
And that's quite it relates and also contradicts with the book, where individualism is very profound in our world. I believe.
Yeah, I see, I see. Just now that you mentioned that the language that is used in the book, like the way that the characters lack of the word to use, and that George Orwell had to write an appendix to explain what is the dictionary, the newspeak they use,
Newspeak.
right, and the double think. So, I just want to ask you, how important does language play in 1984? Even though the book, right, George Orwell writing style is spectacular. I have to say that. I have to admit that because I have to use the dictionary next to me when I read the book. There's so many interesting,
Offensive words.
yeah, very fancy word, but I don't feel frustrated reading that. I feel really interested in that. But when the characters start talking, start thinking, then it feels like the lack of a lot of words to use, right? So the question that I ask you is, how important does language play in 1984?
I believe it's very important in the book. Like if you lack of a certain vocab, you can't expressively convey a message to the other person, or even that's why the newspeak, it's an newly invented language without political rebellion related words. So they can't rebel, even though they have the thought. I believe they have the thought. So without that, their thoughts are restrained.
I see.
It's also similar to an idea called linguistic relativity. Yeah. And that is so like, you know that the first word in the colors, we know that it's black, white, and then red. And then it's either orange or green. The last one is blue. That's why many people they are less associated with the word blue.
I see. Really, really. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I'm colorblind. But well, I try to imagine. Okay, this is no joke. Okay, but I know. Yeah. That's very interesting point. I would say, like, all of the newspeak, it limits you to use your words, to use to actually speak your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting, especially when you think about the concept of double thing. I would say this is also a very similarity between the what is that, the Animal Farm in 1984. It's either good or ungood, and it's the same with Animal Farm. You notice that, like, they either say
Snowball.
yeah, like they tell you what's that, 2 legs is like the enemy and the 4 legs is friend, right? So it's either you are friend or enemy. There's nothing in between, not like ally, not someone supports you. Like it happens in 1984 as well. Like you either pick a side against the government or for the government. And I mean, the Big Brother, to be less controversial.
Yeah, and like they always use words to express things, and the government say that if you are limited in words, you can't express things. Well, I was reading that. I disagree with that. Like I feel that you can express things through like art, paintings, or music. But then when I think deeper, if I don't have the words and I have the art, I still can't describe the picture. So I think that words may like affect our thinking, but I don't think that it will suppress all of it.
All right, I see. I wonder what kind of words would I use when I look at Picasso's one, but that's not the topic then.
Picasso.
Yeah, it's more abstract to me. Well, okay. One last question before we end the podcast. I want to ask you. Okay, since we talk about totalitarianism. Okay,
Mhm.
how to pronounce totalitarianism. All right. So, what makes it so attractive to a certain group of people? Throughout the history, we have seen a lot of them, right? You don't need to mention their names, but we've seen a lot of them. So, what makes that so attractive to a certain of group of people? Like you could see that they gain supporters. They have like they become very popular and people support them.
Mhm.
So why does it happen? Isn't that like we are all stupid or we are all supporting something that very cruel? But yeah, that's my question. I don't understand why it becomes so attractive.
Yeah, I think the most part of it's because of power.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to say it in a less favorable way, it's greed.
All right.
But if you think in terms of the citizens' perspective, some of them may think that it's better. Like I don't need to do anything. I'm just following.
Mhm.
It's there's less effort, less energy used, and the government is giving me everything. So
Mm.
there's a contradicting concept between the two, and like wait, I lost my train of thought.
All right. All right. Take your time. Don't worry.
Yeah, and yeah, that's why it's good that you're brainwashing the citizens to thinking that this is good. That's
Okay.
why like in the story, Winston is the one that they are targeting to brainwash
Mm-hmm.
to believe that the government is good.
All right. I see. Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah. True. True. Agree. Well, okay. So one last thought on the book before we end the
Ooh,
podcast. So, do you have anything to tell the audience regarding the two books that we discussed today?
definitely read 1984. And speaking of that, I have a question
Mhm.
for you. Like most, yeah. So it's you see, this book is around a dystopian world. So I'm trying to think. Do you think that this dystopian literature is of any help to the world, like rather than utopian literature?
Oh.
Like, could it be that something like it can be an inspiration for people for doing bad things?
Well, I'm not a big fan of utopian books, you know. I haven't really read that any utopian books before. But I would say dystopian book. I would disagree that this is not supporting anyone to actually gain the power. I think, all right. Um, I would say that dystopian books help us to realize that yeah, the consequences of what we're doing right now and the future. I don't really think like something like uh, that bad would happen,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's the worst case scenario that would happen. And in a way, it helped us to understand the situation. I shared this with Reina already. The two books really inspired me to become better because like I understand better about the world that I'm living in. So I would say like yeah, dystopian books help us to understand that yeah, this is the worst thing, and you should avoid that. You should not come to
Yeah.
that point. And if you decide to follow, then I don't know what can I tell you, right?
You should inspire yourself with better things. Like because sometimes the most recent thing in our brain would be the thing that we are inclining towards. Yeah. So
All right,
we
agree.
should inspire ourselves with
Yeah, all right.
bad-
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening to the podcast.
Thank
And my name is
you.
Khang. Thank you, Kelly and
And
Reina,
I'm Kelly.
and we will see you in the next episode. Then goodbye.
Goodbye.